Hey there YouTube, welcome to the French Grand Army update. What I've decided to do, because these videos tend to be quite lengthy, I'm basically going to spread it into two videos, each one covering the two platoons that my army actually consists of. And of course the new units that I have done since my last video, I'll go into those in a little bit more detail than some of the other models that you may have already seen in my normal army updates. So basically this is my first platoon, and it's basically consists of a command section led by a first lieutenant, and he can either have one or two helpers, it's kind of optional, a medic, and a artillery spotter, and for the free artillery piece or support weapon, the 75mm howitzer. Vehicles wise, we have the Panhard armoured car, and for tanks support we have the little tiny Hotchkiss tank, which of this particular one is going to be an H38, which has got the slightly upgraded anti-tank gun, which costs an extra 10 points. Support wise, we have of course the artillery piece, which the spotters assigned, a light mortar for some on mobile support, and the boys anti-tank team to dish out some long-range anti-armour stroke picking off the odd long-range team. So let's start with the officers, or the officer in this particular case. Of course you've seen these guys before, so I'll just kind of run through them really quickly. So this guy is the first lieutenant of the unit, and he's got the slightly later field blouse. I can't remember the exact designation, but I think it could be 38 or 39 field blouse, which is kind of like a much kind of almost olive drab, sort of dark brown, but not quite. And you can see this kind of figure is kind of lacking equipment really. I kind of thought about perhaps making him a captain and sort of perhaps converting one of my sort of NCO type figures into another officer like I did for my second platoon. But this is the officer. He's kind of in the unit's colours, and of course his helmet is done as an infantry officer, and of course he's armed in this case with nothing but a revolver, although I'm sure in the game they'll allow him to have a rifle or something. And for his two support guys, like I say, you can either have the one or the two. It's totally up to choice. And so we have the guy with the submachine gun and the guy, just a normal sort of infantry sergeant. There. Next up, we'll do another quick run through of the medic. So here we have the medic figure. I haven't decided whether he'll always run on his own or whether he'll actually have an assistant. Again, obviously with that spare helper, I could perhaps assign one of them to the medic. This figure is by Warlord, and it's kind of lacking equipment. It would have been nice if he had perhaps two medical satchels. But yeah, it's nice to have a medic figure. So that's him. The next up we'll go for the anti-tank rifle team. Again, you would have seen these guys before, but I'll just give you a quick look. This guy, of course, with the boys Mark 1, and like I said before, for the sort of low points cost that these guys cost, it does give you some. It does give you a kind of very long-ranged rifle, which can also pin some tanks. So it's kind of for the sort of points cost, I think they're kind of cool. So we have the boys anti-tank gun, or rifle, sorry. And this is the assistant helper for him, and you can see that he's got his 2 extra ammo satchels there, which is kind of cool. And other than that, he's kind of just assisting, putting out a target or something. So that's the anti-tank team, anti-tank rifle team. Next up, we'll go for the light mortar. And like I mentioned in my second army update video, I decided to put them onto a sort of a team base, and I think it came out pretty cool in the sort of a, kind of on the edge of sort of a forest. And it's a nice little model. Comes in the mortar with the molded hands comes in one part, and you just simply attach that to the sleeves of the figure. And I was really happy with how these guys turned out on the bigger base, because obviously you can put them that much closer together than them being on separate bases. It makes a nice little sort of a scene for them. But again, you would have seen that in my second army update. Next up, we'll go for the artillery piece and the observer. So here we have the observer, who has been given the rank of a lieutenant, I believe. Yes. And this guy obviously can be used as an observer or a spotter, and could also even at stretch be used as another assistant figure. He pretty basic figure, but he came out pretty cool with his field telephone in front of him to relay the coordinates, and of course the free weapon that you get with the French army of your choice. That can either be a light howitzer like this, or a anti-tank gun. And of course, me not being a great fan of anti-tank guns, had to go for the medium light howitzer. Light howitzer. You can see that it's got the that sort of French camouflage scheme on the sort of the front of the gun and the gun shield, and then it kind of carries on down the gun barrel but stops on the rest of the gun, and it's just in a sort of a normal sort of that French green. I believe it's I believe I used my Panzer Aces French green on that particular this particular model. I can't quite see it at hand at the moment. No, I can't. Oh, here we go. It's it's French Tank Crew is the actual colour. This colour here, French Tank Crew. It's kind of a sort of a slightly lighter, limier green. So that is the artillery piece, and of course it's got its Starbuck stirrer fixed position, and it's kind of it's not meant to be like muddy, but it has been muddy, so it's kind of slightly muddied up, and it's got like the sort of wooden floor, and then it sort of goes into the sort of mud where it's kind of been worn away. And yeah, I was pretty happy with how this turned out. And again, Warlord piece, and it was very simple to put together. I didn't have any problems with it at all. I think the only problem I did have was trying to get the wheels to stay straight while the super glue was setting, and of course actually putting the gunner on the actual seat there. I had a bit of trouble trying to get him to set in the right position, and like I said before in my other video, I don't think he's actually in there correct, but I kind of got away with it. So yeah, very happy with how that turned out, and I'm sure that'll come in very handy for dishing down some support. Next up, we'll quickly run over the vehicles. So we've got the recce element, which is of course the Panhard armoured car. This is a pretty cool vehicle. It's got a good autocannon on top. Let me just try and find out the exact caliber of it. It is a 25mm autocannon, so that's pretty decent weapon. And I have, of course, with most of my resin vehicles, I like to magnetise the turret. So I've got a little bit of metal plate in there and a recessed magnet, and it just keeps the turret on there. It stops it from falling off, because even though there's quite a long peg on there, I noticed that with a lot of resin vehicles the turrets will pop off very easily. And I don't particularly want to go around dropping it, risk not only chipping the paint but also bending the gun. So yeah, that's the panhard, and it's done in colours that matched a photograph that I found online. Simply a sort of that sort of French tank green with a sort of brown French style camouflage covering, and of course the black rim around it, the black outline, and simply the French symbol on the four sides, and number plate on the very front there. So quite a simple colour scheme for that, but I think it came out pretty cool. Next up, we'll go for the Hotchkiss. Cute little model. Came in three. The hull came in three pieces, with the two tracks and the body, and the hull, the turret, sorry, came in one piece, with literally just having to add this back hatch for the commander. And other than that, there was nothing else. So it was like a really simple kit to put together. Because normally a tank will have not only it looks like I've actually just lost my magnet off the top there. You can see that the magnet's come off the peg, so I'm going to have to sort that out. So that is the well, it's actually meant to be an H35 panhard, but like I say, I'm actually going to make it a H38 with the slightly better anti-tank gun. Okay, next up, this infantry unit here is the one that I did in my first army update, but this second unit here, this is actually new, and I actually finished these guys off yesterday. So I'll give you a quick run through these guys. This particular squad is an 11-man squad, similar to my Foreign Legion, and I believe the extra figure came from what they call the French command pack, which I believe is an officer and a bunch of like foot troops. And this is the NCO. It's a basic, one of the basic, I think there's 3 or 4 different NCO positions. And you know, again, it's just like a basic sort of French infantryman with his name on the bottom there, and done in for the normal infantry unit that I'm doing. And actually, let's just zoom in a little bit this way. Here we go. So that is the sergeant. This is kind of like my refined version of my French infantrymen, done through like of all the 4 units of infantry that I've done. Every one I kind of slightly modified the paint scheme to the point where, you know, by this point I'm very happy with how the infantry turn out. Now this particular figure has got an interesting story. This guy actually began life as one of these, and you can see that I kind of converted him. So basically what I did was I slightly cut down his grenade pouch, I cut his hand off and actually bent it down into a new position, and then stuck his hand back on, and it kind of gives you that, and added a rifle muzzle from another rifle. I believe this is a Springfield muzzle, from a spare American Spring, and I think it came out pretty cool in the end. It's definitely an infantry usable figure, and I kind of tried to trim up the grenade that was in his hand to make it look like it's a clip for his rifle. So yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with how this guy out, and this guy is actually the corporal of this particular squad. And there's his name, Corporal. Okay, next up, machine gun team. So this particular unit has the same machine gun team as this particular unit over here, so there's basically no difference there. We've got the standing guy. He's got his crossed machine guns tab on his shoulder. He's got his infantry colours, and he's a soldat first class, so he's got his one stripe in the infantry colour. Where sergeants have, like for instance, the difference between the corporal and the sergeant. Just quickly go back. The sergeant has got two yellow stripes, where the corporal has two stripes in the colour of the infantry unit, so in this case 2 blue stripes. So quickly go back to this guy, and so yeah, he's got the like I say, he's kind of obviously the same figure. He's got a slightly different coloured moustache to give him different hair colour, and yeah, he came out pretty cool. It's like the sort of the transition between starting and finishing an army, the sort of the way that you kind of get naturally better at painting the basic infantry. And again, we have this same kind of loader guy. Armour, of course, is just nothing but a pistol. And other than that, everything else is exactly the same. So that's the loader. Next up, the VB launcher guy. Again, you've seen this figure many times. I believe I've got one in every single unit of my 4 infantry units, and more again, there seems to only be one position, so again it's the same sort of figure. Next up, we go into the infantry now with rifles. So here we have a nice guy advancing, and this guy is a soldat first class again. The stripe, the single stripe, and of course the colour, the blue stripe on the colour with the numbers of the infantry regiment. Next up, the kneeling guy again. I think most French infantry is more or less the same. I think every unit I've got has got some 80% of the same sort of figures. There's a couple of units in my second platoon that have got a few different positioned guys. Strangely enough, I actually found painting this army pretty easy going. I think probably the most annoying thing about it is doing all this leather facing on all the packs. That can get kind of a little bit tedious. But generally, I didn't have too much trouble painting these guys. That, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone gets affected by having to paint multiple figures that are more or less the same. And in this sort of case, because the French infantry units are metal, they actually have a lot, you know, very small pools of different positions, so you do end up painting the same figure over and over again. Yeah, kind of a very similar problem with the Italians, really, but they had obviously a lot more different head choices, because they obviously had some in sun hats, some in helmets, and some with the Bastina caps. So here we have another infantryman. This guy is again a first class private. Of course, the names I get from a random name generator. And the final guy for this particular platoon is this normal bog standard rifle guy. And again, very happy with how this infantry unit turned out. And if you kind of put him up against the same positioned guy from my very first platoon, I wonder if you can actually tell if there's actually any difference. To tell the truth, I'd say the guy I did first has kind of got a slightly lighter tinge to his uniform. and this guy is a second class trooper in my first squad, which of course is a 10-man squad, where my second squad is an 11-man squad. And like I say, these guys are basically designed to be either regular or inexperienced, depending on how I just decide to field them that particular day. And I suppose it could be said for the other unit too. The first unit which I did, which was these guys, they're more or less the same. So that is the end of my first part of this Grand Army update, my first platoon. I think this is going a little bit faster than how I normally do them, and the second part may be a little bit longer because I've actually got 3 of my newer things that I have never covered before in, so that might take a little bit longer, but running up to sort of 14-15 minutes is not too bad. So I hope you enjoyed it, and please go watch the second part for the second platoon, which I nicknamed my sort of veteran platoon because they've got the Foreign Legion in, and the Trailers. So give it a thumbs up if you feel like it. Feel free to leave a comment, and I'll catch you later.